Hello and welcome to my series of conversations with Stalwarts of Music. Today's episode is being partnered along with Perpetual Buzz Experiences. It's an artist representation company with three very basic but lofty goals. They are a launchpad for a lot of indie musicians, helping them leverage success, and they make sure that they make some of the most memorable experiences for music lovers. They also help generate funding for a lot of social causes and make sure that it's worthwhile and people have a good time in the process. Be sure to check them out on www.perpetualbuzz.com. We have another podcast partner, which is Wire Up Music Store, one of the finest music retail stores with state of art equipment, your one stop solution for the best musical gear, ranging from guitars to ukulele, percussive instruments to classical instruments. Do check out their Instagram handle, which goes by at the rate wireup.india. My guest today is a child prodigy who discovered her musical talents from winning a country music competition at the age of 3 to being a guitar hero in the actual video game. Melanie Faye is a 24-year-old guitarist, bassist, producer, and a songwriter who first captured the world's attention back in 2017. She's been an Instagram sensation and caught the eye of musicians such as John Mayer, Quincy Jones, her, Shawn Mendes, and the NPR Music Group. She's graced the stage and toured with Willow Smith, No Name, the acclaimed rapper, Maggie Rogers, Hayley Williams, Jamila Woods, Masigo, and Mac DeMarco. Without any further ado, I'm delighted to welcome my guest for today, Melanie Faye. Hi, Melanie. How are you?
Hey, I'm okay. How are you?
Very well. How's it
That's
going?
good.
Where are you
I'm
at?
okay. How do you pronounce your name?
Aditya Veera. That's
Aditya.
Aditya. Yeah.
Okay. Nice to meet you, Aditya.
Likewise, it's an absolute pleasure. You finally made it. What have
Yeah.
you been up to? What's been your agenda for the past couple of days?
Just working out and making music. That's all I really do nowadays.
Oh,
Yep.
nice. You still in Nashville?
No, I'm actually in Atlanta, Georgia, so I'm 3.5 hours away.
Oh, okay. So you've come there for work, or you've come there for like a couple of shows lined up?
Yeah, for work. Well, I live here now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of a disturbance. Can you hear that sound? A little bit
Is it
of a
gone?
Yeah, it's gone now. Yeah, much
Oh, that was my guitar.
better. Oh, okay, great. So I have a couple of interesting questions for you as part of our agenda. So shall we get started?
Yes.
Great. So Melanie, you discovered your flair for the guitar at a very young age, right from winning a competition hosted by the Country Music Hall of Fame to being a guitar hero in the actual video game. So I'd read upon
Missed you.
some of your earlier interviews where you mentioned that you didn't quite feel a sense of community. How did the environment receive you when you started out as part of your musical pursuit?
Sorry, I lost you for a second.
Okay. Do you want me to? Can you hear me well now?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you quite well.
Okay.
Yeah. So coming back to my question, you've discovered your flair for the guitar at a very young age, right from winning a music competition hosted by the Country Music Hall of Fame to being a guitar hero in the actual video game. So I'd read upon the one of your earlier interviews where you specifically mentioned that you didn't quite feel a sense of community. How did the environment essentially receive you when you started out in your musical pursuits?
Um, I would say uh for the most part, people were really excited to see me doing music, like to see a young person doing this type of music. Um, but yeah, that's true. I never really had that sense of community, but I think people were excited.
But if you had some say to change the whole ideology, what could be done better in terms of the whole community aspect?
Um, I think there could be more representation, and I think um, there could be more uh, spaces for different types of guitar players.
Hmm. So you mean to say that you're looking at more set of avenues or more platforms? Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, like if there was just more diversity in the spaces that exist for guitar and musicians.
Got it. Got it. So let me take a step back. You went to the Nashville School of Performing Arts and pursued formal jazz guitar
Hmm.
as your major step of learning this particular instrument. The experience must have been quite enriching to a certain level, and the faculty out there might have provided a great context towards learning and in terms of your evolution. What is it that excites you about music, and why do you do music?
Yeah. What excites me about music? Something about the way music sounds just really like it just really touches my soul and like it gives my brain serotonin and it just I just love it. And you asked why I started doing music?
That's right.
Oh yeah, because of Guitar Hero.
Okay.
And I just thought the guitar looked and sounded so cool and I just had to get one.
So, what was your earliest memory in terms of music, apart from the going to the competition and all of that? If you had to like tell me what was your earliest memory in terms of music, what would that be?
Yeah, I remember being like 2 or 3 years old, listening to Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 with my family.
Hmm.
Yeah, we used to all sit in the living room and listen to his music and dance.
Oh, lovely. Must have been
Yeah.
quite, quite enriching. To sort of have your own family time and listening to music together. That's the best feeling one can have.
Hmm.
Do you have a larger image, perhaps a larger story within you beyond the end process of creativity that we hear in terms of music? Is there some sort of identity that is at the top of your head, and do they live for you when you create music?
Um, I wouldn't say that there's an identity. Um, no.
But how do you sort of visualize, or how do you sort of figure out like what's like your procedure, or what are the steps that you take in terms of, or you carry forward in terms of instructions in terms of this entire process of creation?
Yeah, when I write a song, I always start with the guitar part. And then once I figure out the guitar part, the bass part is a no-brainer. The bass part is just playing the roots and thirds and fifths of the guitar chords. And then once I have guitar and bass, the drums are a no-brainer because they're just following the cadence of the guitar and bass. So that's kind of how my songs get created.
So as soon as an idea pops into your head, do you just record it via voice notes, or how do you do it? How do you sort of?
Um, I'll record it through either GarageBand or Logic.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does scholarship sit with someone like you? Would you consider yourself well read or someone with very high intellect?
Um, I wouldn't say so. No.
Okay, but at least we can hear a lot of that in the music that you play. I think it naturally comes for someone like you.
Thank you.
We are right now at the epicenter of technological advancements. Very often, there is a common argument where people say that a lot of older guitars sound much better than the newer ones. One would naturally think that advancements in technology would enable today's guitars to be much more playable, even sound better. Could you discuss that at all?
Yeah. I actually don't. I prefer newer guitars over vintage guitars. Like I like new guitars that are made to look and sound vintage,
Mhm.
but they're not actually vintage. And I've noticed older guitars, like they tend to have a lot of problems. Like they might need new frets, or like, the capacitors are really old, and like the tuners might be old, the pickups are old, and they've just been through a lot of things. So I prefer new guitars.
Is this your favorite guitar, the one that you're holding on to right now? Is this your favorite
Yes,
one?
this is my favorite.
Okay, what brand is it?
It's a Gibson, and her
Oh,
name is Betty.
Betty.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. And how many guitars do you have as part of your collection?
I think right now I have 15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you definitely have, from what I've gauged so far, you definitely have a very firm grounding in terms of a musical form like jazz, sort of a very thought through approach. How do you respond to more commercial forms of music attempted in films and a lot of other commercial avenues? What is your approach towards that?
Um, I guess I just kind of go with the flow. Yeah.
Okay. So are you involved in commercial projects as well at this point of time?
Um, Not really right now.
Okay, but you do intend to sort of make it to Hollywood and play in a lot of movies, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
That being said, I have another follow up question. What is your take on stardom? Do you feel a little alienated from the normal world once that comes into the picture?
Um, Not at the level that I'm at. Like I feel like um I do have fans all over the world, but in the city that I live in, or the cities that I have lived in, I'm not really a superstar. Yeah. Like sometimes when I go to a show, like somebody might recognize me, but for the most part, I'm pretty unknown.
But what kind of validation do you seek from your audience, or be it like the popular press? And what kind of applause would you give yourself for the musical contributions you have done so far?
Um, I'm really proud of myself for releasing my song "It's a Moot Point."
Mhm.
I think that one is really well done. I think the production is really well done. So I would give myself an applause for that. And what was the other part of the question?
Uh, do you really care for validations in the popular press or from your audiences? Are you someone who's very curious to know or hear from them?
Yeah, I can't lie. I would say I do care about, being heard and being well received by my audience. I want them to enjoy the music that I'm putting out.
Great. In this larger climate of globalization, that of capitalism, everything seems to be very utilitarian and has some sort of value attached or associated by the people. Right? So people are investing in art in the form of NFTs and several other digital assets that have come into the picture. Uh, so people do it in terms of a sense of investment and not necessarily their response towards something like art. Right? In your opinion, what is the value of art, that of artistic process, and why should the community invest into art?
Um, I think art is healing, and I think art is really good for young people. So I think art is like really good for really anyone's mental health. So I think if and I think everyone needs a creative outlet in this world, so their life isn't so black and white, so it's not so corporate. Um yeah.
But
So
but
that's why I think they should invest in art. Yeah.
mhm. But are you personally inclined towards digital assets, investing into digital assets or NFTs, like I mentioned earlier? Are you doing something like that?
I haven't done that yet. I haven't really looked into it. Yeah.
Fair enough. Uh, do you have a sense of or two where you might go from here in terms of the basic shift you have made already in your approach to music? You've dabbled quite a bit in singing, writing, teaching. What's next? Might it be a little more of music production? Do you still feel the yearning or the longing to push another boundary, wall, and move elsewhere in this space?
Yeah. What's next for me is putting out more music. Like the top of next year, I want to release a bunch of songs consistently.
Mhm.
And um, I feel like I would be more successful and more known if I had more original music out. So I want to push the boundaries of what's possible in my music. And I want my music. I basically want to make sophisticated R&B, if that makes sense. So I want to make music that's digestible and, contemporary, but at the same time has that technicality to it.
Uh,
Yeah.
since we have a lot of viewers on the Instagram live stream, we have a lot of upcoming Indian singer songwriters and musicians who are very keen in knowing what is your approach towards releasing music. How would you go about it? You said you have a lot of things in your pipeline for next year. So what's your basic approach like?
Yeah. I'll come up with the guitar part, or I already told you, it all starts with the guitar part. Yeah. And then I build the song around that.
Mhm. But apart
Yeah.
from the technicalities of making music or creating, what is the strategy like for pushing out your song? Like, do you reach out to musical distributors or do you have an agency that does it for you? And how do you go about it? Do you go about releasing separate singles or you want to put out a music video? What do you do? What's that approach like?
Yeah. Well, for the longest time, or ever since I've been putting out music, I've been signed actually, but I just got out of my deal.
Okay.
So now I plan on releasing music independently,
Hmm.
maybe through TuneCore or DistroKid. I haven't really looked into it yet, but something like that.
Okay. But if you had to release music, would you go about the entire process of making music, single music videos one after the other, or would you just focus on putting out singles uh, which are just for like audio streaming? What's that approach like?
Yeah, I plan on I wouldn't well yeah, I want a music video with everything that I put out.
Mhm.
Um or I wouldn't necessarily call it a music video. I want to do an Instagram performance of me playing the song. So like I'll play I'm basically wanting to cover my own song.
Okay.
So I want to put like how do I describe it? Like a playthrough of each song that I release on my social media.
Right. So that's more to do with your engagement, social media engagement for your release.
Exactly, yeah.
And you're someone who's actually figured out you're an Instagram sensation. Your content is viral on Instagram. What how did you go about discovering or understanding the algorithm? What's the system like in terms of your content? What do you do with regard to that?
Um, I don't fully understand the algorithm, and it's actually changed a lot since 2020. Like,
Hmm.
I noticed that year they really changed the algorithm. I don't know why they did, probably because, COVID and everyone was at home, so everyone was posting. So they had to change it or something. But I will say one thing that I like to do is I like to cover a song and then in the caption of the song, ask my audience to tag the artist that I'm covering in hopes that they'll see it and they'll repost it on their page. So that's like a strategy that I use a lot.
Got it. But are you most comfortable just with Instagram, but or you give equal importance to your Facebook or your Twitter? What's that like?
I post on all of them. Uh Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter. Um but I'm most comfortable with Instagram. I
Got
get the
it.
highest engagement on Instagram.
Got it. Uh, Now let me ask you a little bit about the performance aspect. During a performance, I'm sure there are moments of fear. If one were to take the spiritual process of pre-performance rituals that a lot of you artists have, you've already kind of tuned your mind to be channelized into the process, and you don't necessarily carry a script given by somebody else you can hold responsible if something were to go wrong, be it good, bad, or indifferent. What if something does not work in your favor? Like, how do you deal with something like that during a performance?
You mean if I'm having a bad performance?
That's right. That's
I'll just fake it till I make it.
right. But in terms of instructions, if you forget something or if you're being put on the spot, how do you deal with something like that?
Yep, that I'll just fake it till I make it, and that's
Okay.
all I'll do. Yep.
Okay. Fair enough. One problem that I've noticed, and a lot of people have noticed, is the fact that uh, there's this underlying question. I mean, since you're also a music instructor, uh, one would say that they would want to create, being a teacher, you would want to create clones of yourself, or would you let the individual emerge? Sometimes the individual is sort of, you know, being put out there, and as a teacher, would you want them to be similar to what you are, or would you want them to have their own identity in terms of whatever they create?
I definitely, at the end, would want them to have their own identity, but I understand when someone is first learning, they're going to mimic all of their
That's right.
influences and wear their influences on their sleeve. So that's my take on that.
Right. So if I were to ask you, you've learnt music from a professional institution, and they would have had certain norms of teaching and certain principles and certain guidelines. And as a student, you would have had a certain approach towards picking it up, and as a teacher, there would have been the process of transmission from a teacher to a student. How is it different from what they did for you? And are you doing something on similar lines, or are you having your own approach of teaching your students?
Um, I definitely created my teaching style, or I definitely am influenced by the teaching style of my teachers. So I would say a lot of it is pulled from what I learned.
Got it.
Yeah. And I would say my teaching style is pretty, what's the word? It's pretty common. I don't think it's very unorthodox.
Got it. Are you a strict teacher?
Um no. Yeah, I don't really, I'm definitely not strict, and then I don't like pressure my students to practice or anything.
Got
And
it.
I don't get upset when they don't practice.
All right. In the process of creating music and catharsis, what is it that keeps a musician in you going? Is there a certain goal that you're working towards? Is there a point reached when you feel that the catharsis is complete? What is it that keeps you going? Is there a destination, or is it just the journey? There is some stake of completeness for sure at some point. Do you have something like that?
No, I don't have like an end goal. It's just something that I enjoy doing. So I just love the process.
So the journey is something that you really care about, if I'm not.
Exactly. Yep.
What are some of the causes you want to contribute towards apart from music?
Oh, definitely homelessness. Like
Okay.
I've noticed there's like millions of people that are homeless in my city. So I definitely want to do something about that when I'm able to.
Okay. Currently, are you involved with certain organizations that support such causes?
No, I'm not.
Coming back to your process of teaching, would you say that the process of learning music involving a master involves certain amount of transmission, and it also involves, as a student, also involves a lot of effort, and I think it's a much more complex idea than just training and effort. As a student, it's an interweaving of many complex ideas and processes, and I feel at this point it's progressively being lost due to a lot of digitization, a lot of distractions. What is your take on something like that?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Uh, so in terms of learning any craft or any art form for that matter, there's a certain amount of transmission from that involves a lot of effort and a lot of time. But it's not just it, right? It's a little more complex idea than just training yourself uh, or practicing. It's an interweaving of a couple of complex ideas, and I feel at this point it's progressively being lost, right? So what is your take on that?
Um, I definitely understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I think the integrity of it is always still there.
But how do you deal with it? Like, I'm sure a lot of your students have very short attention spans, and considering we had spoken of Instagram, even Instagram content is very little, right? At least musical pieces need to be, at least how I look at it, is listening to an entire piece from starting till the end. But you've got like 1 minute videos, 59-second content, and all of that. So how does one deal with something like that, at least when it comes to music?
I guess all they can really do is adapt. Um, and I think the integrity of the music is still there, but it just is condensed, if that makes sense.
Sure. uh, could you tell the people out here your collaboration with Pickup Music and the musical courses that you have to offer?
Yeah, let me look it up because I actually don't know.
Hmm.
Um, so I have an R&B masterclass with Pickup Music.
Right.
Um, and in that masterclass, that one is more directed towards the intermediate player.
Hmm.
Um, so in that one, I teach you different licks and then different chord progressions.
Hmm.
And I also have a neo soul boot camp.
Oh,
And
wow.
that one, I believe, is more for beginners.
Hmm.
And that one will focus on a more simplified version of the chord progressions and a more simplified version of the licks.
And how long is the duration of this entire program?
Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
I actually haven't watched my master class.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's just that a lot of people might be curious to sort of sign up for something like this. So I thought it'd be nice to ask you about this entire initiative.
Yeah, I mean, we spent like 3 days filming all the content. And I think the Neo Soul Bootcamp has 7 days worth of content. And the other one, I'm not sure how much it has.
Got it. Speaking of our planet, it seems to move inexorably towards environmental disasters, towards war and chaos. So, where can that impetus towards change come from? Where we can bridge our own aspirations, our own cultivation of mindfulness through music, right? What's in terms of what's happening on the larger planet? Could you throw some light on that?
Um, say that one more time.
Considering the current situation, there's war happening between Russia and Ukraine, a lot of chaos all around, and as human beings, where can the impetus to change come from? Where can one bridge their own aspirations in terms of cultivation of mindfulness through music to what's happening in this large planet?
Um, I think everyone has to take a look in the mirror if they want change, and everyone has to be the change. And there's a lot of music out there that you could listen to be inspired uh, about, the calamities of the world.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In terms of accolades and milestones, you've been feted by applause from musicians such as John Mayer, Shawn Mendes, and many more. Uh, in terms of, I mean, we did speak of validation, but if we had to take a particular tour, for example, with any of these artists, like any collaboration in terms of a live performance, what would be the best memory for you in terms of working with one of these artists?
Yeah. One time in 2018, I opened for Mac DeMarco at the Hollywood Palladium. So
Oh
I would
wow,
say that that was my favorite show that I did, because I was like really confident, and like the rehearsals went really well. So I'm really proud of that show.
got it. Are there any other anecdotes, any other funny anecdotes that you'd like to share with the fans out here?
Um, Not that I can think of.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your new music project that you have in your pipeline. So what's in store for us?
Um, that sophisticated R&B. Yeah,
Okay. And are you doing any interesting collaborations as part of this entire EP?
not really.
Okay, so it's just you. Is it going to be a solo uh, album, or you have other musicians who will be like
I
accompanying
don't
you?
plan on releasing an album. I'm going to release singles,
Okay,
and I don't plan on collaborating with anyone. I plan on just doing everything myself.
got it. Uh, I'm interested to know if you've your affinity towards Indian music. Have you ever tried listening to Indian music?
I actually have never heard Indian music, but
Yeah.
I recently found out about Indian music theory
Hmm.
and like some of the scales that they use.
Got it. When can we expect you in India?
Oh man, I don't know. I've never been to India. I've never had any opportunity to go, so I don't know. I have no idea.
We were really looking forward to have you in India at some point. Maybe once your next couple of singles are out, you can
Hopefully.
come down to our country and play a couple of shows because you have a huge fan base out here in India.
Wow.
They really dig your
That's the
music.
thing. I feel like once I put out more music, it's going to open more opportunities for me.
That's right. And you can even think of a fusion Indo-Western kind of collaboration. Neo
Mhm.
soul meets Hindustani music, or
Yeah,
neo soul meets Carnatic music, something in those lines. That'll be a very
exactly.
interesting take. Are you a spiritual person, if I may ask?
I think so. I don't know. I don't really meditate as much as I should.
Got it. Apart from meditation, do you have any sort of spiritual techniques that you follow for yourself or that you embody?
Um, I guess you could say working out can be spiritual,
Right.
and that's probably all I do.
Okay. Okay. Now that you have your guitar, we'd love for you to play something.
Okay.
Wow, that was super smooth. You just made
Thank
my
you.
Sunday morning.
Thank you.
uh, in terms of if someone were to ask you what is your style of playing, or what would Melanie Faye be, right? What would you describe to them in terms of this entire musical style that you put forth?
Yeah, I would describe it as jazz, R&B, math rock.
Hmm.
Yeah, all three of those.
Got it. And how did you develop or go about creating this particular style of playing? Were you influenced by someone, or it just came natural to you?
I've been influenced by a lot of people. One guy that I'm really influenced by is Carrie Too Smooth Marshalls,
Hmm.
or Carrie Too Smooth Marshall.
Okay.
Um, he has a lot of Instagram videos and a lot of YouTube guitar lessons that I used to watch a lot.
Okay.
And I would say that's a really big influence for me. And also, Eric Gales
Oh, wow.
is like probably my biggest guitar influence. Yeah.
W- Interestingly, we'll be having Eric Gales on the show in the next couple of weeks.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yes, so he's touring right now, and really looking forward to talk to him as well.
Yay. That's amazing.
That'll be fun. Great. So I'm going to move to a slightly interesting segment as part of our agenda. And this is brought to you by Hashtag Magazine. And it's called Turn It Up. So
Okay.
the fun part of this segment is I'm going to ask you very concise questions. And you got to be very spontaneous with your answers. You don't have to think so much.
Okay.
First question for you, Melanie. Uh, if you had an opportunity to put an all-star R&B or a neo soul band together, who'd be in it?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Um, wow. Well, first I would be in the band. And then wow, that's such a good question. Eric Gales.
Hmm.
So that would be two guitar players. Now we need a drummer.
Hmm.
Um, let's see. Who would be our drummer and bass player? Um, let's say Mackay Curtis on the drums and then Jason Leopold on bass. Yeah.
Wow. And who'd be on vocals?
Oh, That's a good question. My friend Jordan Danielle Harris.
Okay, I haven't heard him, but I'm gonna be sure to look him up after our interview.
Okay.
What is that one song that always makes you cry?
Wow. Um, Maybe Anytime You Need a Friend by Mariah Carey.
Good choice. What is, on the contrary, what is your favorite guilty pleasure song?
Um, If We Were a Movie by Hannah Montana.
That's a classic indeed.
Yep.
And your version of five commandments uh, that you embody for yourself as a teacher and that you want to pass on to your students, what would they be?
Um, Skill,
Mhm.
integrity, talent, and a good ear for music and soul.
Lovely.
Yeah.
If you had an opportunity to try out or experiment a new cuisine, what might that be?
Oh man. I've tried it all. I've traveled the world and I've tried all different types of cuisines, but I would love to try real authentic Indian street food.
Yeah, you should. You should. India's so diverse that you've got like so much in the platter that you can choose from. We've got so many different states. We've got like a lot of cultural diversity, and of course, lot of tasty food. Indian food's the best.
Hmm. And my favorite Indian food is coconut chutney. I love the
Oh
green
wow!
coconut chutney. Yeah.
So when you say green coconut chutney, you put a little bit of mint leaves onto it. Is
Yeah.
okay? That's nice. So there are a lot of varieties of coconut chutney. You've got like you got the ones with the mint leaves. You've got ones with a little bit of tomato, and you got a lot of varieties. Especially when you come down south, uh, we have uh, we have more than like 100 different varieties of chutneys.
Delicious.
Yep, yep. Have you tried Indian dosa?
Oh yes. Masala dosa.
Masala dosa, you like it?
Yeah, I love it. It's great.
Lovely. When you come down to India, I'll show you around. I'll take you to different parts of South India, and I'm gonna give you some authentic recommendations in terms of food and dessert.
Okay.
Because I'm a foodie and I love food.
Me too.
I have one last question for you. This is a custom that I follow in all of my interviews. I ask all my guests this common question: down in the distant horizon, what would you want to be remembered as?
Um, a sweet, caring person that put good vibes out into the universe.
Wonderful, wonderful. Before we conclude, I'd like you to give a concluding note for a lot of musicians who are watching and who are going to be listening to our interview. This interview is also being aired on Big FM Shillong and Azol, two incredible radio stations that cater to English music. And it's also going to be part of my podcast, my audio podcast on Apple Podcasts. It's called Stalwarts of Music with Aditya Veera. And
Okay.
soon, very soon, I'll be launching it on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and a lot of other platforms. So for all the listeners who are going to be listening to this, they'd like to hear a concluding note from you, and it'd be great if it were to be a musical note.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. As we
Yeah, you're
continue to
welcome.
celebrate a dozen marvelous musical pieces, the showmanship that you've displayed in terms of your performances, of course, your vocal abilities, your songwriting, it sort of plays a very rich and intense life that all of us sort of await. Uh, Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thanks for tuning in once again. And it's been a great blessing, honor, and a privilege. Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. Please do stay in touch.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll
Thank
see you
you.
soon. I'll see you soon in India.
Okay.
All right then. Bye bye.
All right. Bye.